Pierce Fire and Rescue spoke about his son, his love of the service, and next to his dad was Deputy Dyson's pregnant wife, who is due next month. Let's listen to what the father had to say.
On behalf of Cooper, Brittany, and their children, and the family of Deputy Cooper Dyson, we cannot describe the overwhelming love that we have received from the community of Pierce County, from the state of Washington, and from all over this great country. The love you have shown us is the very reason why Cooper wanted to serve all of us. He would say, "I will go wherever God needs me to go." First, that was into the United States Coast Guard, and he thoroughly enjoyed serving his country. But home was here in Pierce County, and his dream job was working for the Pierce County Sheriff's Department. And he truly loved being a deputy.
Very brave family there. Again, just right around Christmas all this happened. Our Cairo 7 Ranji Sinha is standing by at the North Gate of JBLM. He's there for the beginning of the processional route that will take Cooper Dyson's body to the Tacoma Dome. Ranji?
Well, Steve, indeed, we're standing in front of the North Gate here at the corner of 112th Street and South Tacoma Way. The procession is going to be making its way from the gate and down this road. If you take a look right now, you can see the police vehicles lined up. We've seen those vehicles entering JBLM all morning long, some of them getting here as early as 8 a.m. to be part of this procession. We've also seen people gathering here within the last hour, people holding flags, apparently out here to salute the procession and the memorial for the deputy Cooper Dyson who was killed in that incident. Of course, we were speaking to the Lakewood police lieutenant who is helping organize some of the logistics for this. He expects that within the next 10 minutes or so, this procession will get going and make its way up South Tacoma Way towards the Tacoma Dome, where that memorial will be taking place a little later in the afternoon. And he did say that it would probably take an hour. So you can see this area shut down right now to traffic. People still gathering out here hoping to catch a little bit of this procession. We're going to be out here live monitoring the situation and showing you the images, sights and sounds from what happens here. And of course, we have others along the route, so we'll be camped out as part of your coverage for this memorial. Reporting live in Lakewood, Ranji Sinha, Cairo 7 News.
All right, Ranji, there at the live at the beginning of this procession, which should start at any moment, according to those there on scene. We want to go to Simney Kim now, who's along the procession route. Simney, what are you seeing there? Have you had a chance to talk to anyone?
Yeah, a lot of people with heavy hearts out here right now. We're along the procession route. It'll take a little bit for the procession to get to us because we're about halfway at South 56th and South Tacoma Way, but you can see behind me that folks are already starting to line the route. This is a group of folks here. You can see the emotion in their faces. They are carrying a flag. Because it is going to take some time for the route to get to us, folks are still showing up here right now. And, you know, it is important to note that this is a day that nobody wanted to be here for. Nobody has to be here today, right around the holidays. They'd rather much be at work doing whatever they would be doing just a couple days before the start of the new year, but yet here we are. I see a group of 3 kids right here. They've got flags that they are waving. This is Jennifer Rickey. This is a family from Bonnie Lake who made it a point to come and be here out along the route, and Jennifer has agreed to talk to me. And Jennifer, of all the things you could be doing today, why here, and why did you bring your sons and your niece?
I think it's really important for our kids to empathize and be able to have empathy for those going through hard times. And of course, we support our law enforcement and want to show them that we are thinking of them, thinking of the family during this time. I know there are agencies all over the world that when there's death in the police family, it's felt all over, and we just want to show our support to these families and let them know that we appreciate all that they do for us.
Earlier, Jennifer, we were talking and you said that you're a teacher, you're also a mother of 5. So the news hearing that Deputy Cooper Dyson has a wife, has a 3-year-old child, and she is pregnant with their second, really hits you.
Yeah.
Can you describe that?
Yeah, I think being a mom, I've been a single mom at one point. It's a really hard struggle, no matter how much support you have. And I know that the family has a lot of support and strong faith, but it's definitely hard thinking about raising kids. And the kids and I talked on the way here about the fact that there's this new baby that's not going to know her father. And it's so important that we show that, we support what he did and that his life meant something, and so that she'll grow up hopefully knowing what a good person he was and get to know him through the family. And it's just really sad to think that there are these young kids that really won't have their own memories. They'll have to know their father through the memories that they're told.
Jennifer, thank you. That was so well said. As we said, these are the folks here. More people have shown up just in the short time that we have been here on the air with you. Deputy Cooper Dyson was just 25 years old. He had only been with the Pierce County Sheriff's Department for about a year, but this was a man who had dedicated his life to service. Not only was he living his dream here with the Pierce County Sheriff's Department, but he had also served the country before in the Coast Guard. We are live here in Pierce County. Simney Kim, Cairo 7 News. We'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Simney, thank you. We will return to you during the course of this morning, and you can have an opportunity to talk to more of those folks who are out there on the streets and certainly displaying a lot of patriotism, but also their love of those who serve us. We bring in our Kevin McCarty, who was at the Tacoma Dome. This is where the procession is going to end. Kevin, you and I have been here a long time. We have seen far too many of these processions and these memorial services for fallen officers, and it doesn't get any easier, does it?
No, sadly, this is the 7th funeral for law enforcement officers killed in the last 10 years. We started in 2009, you may remember, with the Lakewood 4, and there have been six other memorial services that we've covered since that time. It's really been a tragedy for the law enforcement community here in Pierce County. Right now, I want to show you what's going on behind us in preparation for the procession arrival here at the Tacoma Dome and for the memorial service. You might be able to see on the right side of your screen that very dark horse. That is the riderless horse. This is kind of a tradition in law enforcement and the military that the riderless horse represents the officer who has fallen, and it would be brought in a procession along with an honor guard when Cooper Dyson's body returns here to the Tacoma Dome for the memorial service scheduled to begin at 1. Not a lot of people here yet, of course, because we're still a couple of hours out, but a lot of preparation going on. You can see the fire trucks with the large American flag. That's a tradition we've seen many, many times at law enforcement funerals. And as they prepare for this today, we saw the firefighters getting that ready. It's a sad sight. It's an honor of the people in law enforcement who died in the line of duty. And as you mentioned, Cooper Dyson was going to an especially violent domestic violence call, and he was trying to get there very quickly, according to investigators with Pierce County, when he had the crash that took his life. And the suspect in this case, according to investigators, was very violent. He even nearly killed a police canine dog that was sent in to try to subdue him. So that's how awful and violent that this situation was, and why Dyson was trying to get there so quickly. So again, right now things are just being prepared here. Not a lot of people showing up. We expect that to step up in the next hour or so when they open the doors here. It's open to the public. Anybody who wants to attend can, and you're encouraged, if you're in the area, if you want to attend this memorial service, to stop by the Tacoma Dome. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Kevin, thank you. And you mentioned the violent episode that Officer Dyson was responding to. It is the sign of what these officers do all the time.
That's right.
They run to the sound of gunfire. They run into the sound and the sights of danger. And I think if we can take the pictures, we're going to bring in our Jim Fuda here in just 1 second from Puget Sound Crime Stoppers. But the procession, we understand, is just beginning at JBLM. So we'll be able to talk about that as well.
That's right. And Jim, what people are going to be seeing here is this procession just gets underway at the north gate of JBLM, heading to the Tacoma Dome for this 1 o'clock service. Kevin touched on it a bit. A lot of ceremony, the riderless horse, the boots that are on backwards. Talk about some of that ceremony for people, that people will be seeing the empty boots facing backwards.
Yes, what happens is that each officer that is a line of duty death like this is granted certain honors. And what that is it starts immediately from the notification through the department. It goes to the Behind the Badge Foundation, which helps put these on. As a part of that, there's a consortium of police commanders, honor guard commanders that get together for one of these. They go around the state and they provide these particular honors. They start and with the family in mind specifically. They will ask them, do you want a procession? Do you want a full service like this? Where would you like to have it? Who do you want as your speakers? And then we offer all these services to them at no charge to them at all.
And talk a little bit about, as we watch this procession that is just getting underway here, we see police officers, firefighters come from all over the country for things like this, even from Canada. Really an outpouring support, because it is really a large, gigantic family of first responders really in this together.
This is a brother and sisterhood that, it is the largest gang in the United States, and we all support and protect each other. It doesn't matter which patch you wear or what agency you work for. When one of us is hurt, everybody comes running.
Jim, it's sometimes difficult because you want this, and I know the family would probably want this also to be a celebration of life, and yet there are so many reminders that this is a very solemn occasion with the riderless horse, the taps played at the ceremony. Somewhere in there's got to be that kind of balance, is it, to remember that young man and his family and all the great things that he was to all of his friends and those close to him.
Exactly. This is bringing the family, the community, and police departments in the region together. It will be a celebration of life, but it will be an honor, and to honor him, and the family gets to see firsthand what their officer is a part of.
And you know, Kevin talked about the violence of the scene that Deputy Dyson was heading to, a domestic violence scene. When people say an officer is going to a standard call, or there is no real standard call, there is no, you know, you're always putting that badge on and risking your life no matter what it is in your shift that day.
Yeah, circumstances, especially going to a domestic, are always changing. It's evolving in real time. They're getting that information, which makes those officers responding want to get there even faster.
Let's take a look, if we can, at what we have in store for later this afternoon as you look at the live pictures of Tacoma, near the Tacoma Dome, and the extended ladders, remembering Deputy Cooper Dyson. The coverage will continue throughout these late morning hours and early afternoon hours here on Cairo 7, so do stay tuned for all this live coverage. And meantime, that procession is still working its way out of the North Gate at JBLM. And
let's go to Ranji Sinha, who's right there at the beginning of the procession. Ranji, what's the latest from out there?
Well, we've seen dozens of vehicles leaving through the North Gate here at Joint Base Lewis McChord. You can see them making their way down South Tacoma Way. And if you take a look on the sidewalk, you can see all the people that have gathered here to honor this fallen deputy, Cooper Dyson, who died in the line of duty. We've seen different agencies out here, Pierce County Sheriff's, other police agencies. We've seen Seattle Police, as well as numerous agencies from around Washington taking part in this. And as you saw from the chopper, you probably could see the fire department out there with the large American flags. Many of the people here very emotional, wanting to salute this deputy, saying they wanted to be out here as part of a larger family for Cooper Dyson. So they have lined this route right here. We've spoken to a few of them. Some of them were actually out here as early as 9 a.m. putting down flowers along the route, obviously trying to take part as much as they can to show that this community supports their law enforcement, especially the Pierce County Sheriff's Department. We are still watching vehicles making their way. The procession started, according to the Lakewood Police Lieutenant I spoke to, around 11:10, so they did essentially start on time, and it's going to make its way to the Tacoma Dome. So this area is shut down right now to traffic, as you can see, as these vehicles make their way. And they're saying this could take about an hour for all the vehicles to make their way to the Tacoma Dome. We're, of course, going to keep an eye on things out here and show you the sights and sounds from this vantage point We have plenty of other people along the route who will show you what they can see, but of course, we're going to make sure that we keep an eye on things right here. For now, live in Lakewood, Ranji Sinha, Cairo 7 News. Let's throw it back to the studio.
And Ranji, I know you're very busy out there. Have you had a chance to talk to anyone along the route? I'm seeing a lot of younger kids out there with their parents at the vantage point where you are.
Yeah, plenty of people have come out with their children because they wanted to bring their families and make sure that they understand that this is about service and sacrifice. In fact, one of the people I spoke to said he was going to be waiting further along the route. He came with his mother and his son. We spoke to him, and he said that it was important for him as a member of law enforcement, even though it was his day off, to bring his son and to bring his family here. And that is the situation for many of the people. Not everyone here is in law enforcement, obviously, but many of them have brought their entire families out here to show once again that this is about service and sacrifice to this community. Let's throw it back to you.
All right, Ranji, thank you. And one can only guess that some of those folks out there with perhaps their grandkids were out there with their children 10 years ago.
That's right.
For other officers who are honored in these processions. Our Simni Kim is standing by live as well along the procession route, and she has been talking to some of those who have come out today to pay their respects. Simni?
Steve, more people are showing up here. We're along South Tacoma Way and South 56th Street, and I do want to just give you a quick look at some of the folks who have come out here to pay their respects and honor Deputy Cooper Dyson and his sacrifice to the community. You talked about the folks who are showing up here with young children. Here is a group that's standing here along the route right now, a mother with 3 children, and you can see the pain in their eyes as the realization of what they're here for really starts to grab true, because this is a man who dedicated his life to the community and paid the ultimate price. I was speaking to somebody earlier today and in driving home the fact that these are hard times, because I think unless you actually walk in these shoes, you don't know the fear and the concern that a lot of these law enforcement families face, that when these officers put on their uniforms, they don't know when they say goodbye to their families, when they kiss them goodbye, if this is the last time they will see them. I do want to talk to somebody who knows precisely what it's like to put on a uniform. In Salome Hansen's case, this is a military uniform that you were talking about, but you came out here because you know what was going through Cooper Dyson's mind, likely that day that he said goodbye to his family and he went to work.
Yeah, I do know what it's like, because you don't know if it's your last time, talking to your family, seeing your family. And it's really, really important for the family in uniform and his family to know that there are people out here who will never forget the sacrifice that he made and what he did every day when he put that uniform on.
Salome traveled from Olympia to come and pay her respects to Cooper Dyson's family. She also brought her 2 children, 16 and 10 years old. What message would you like them to take away from being here today?
I want them to realize what the men and women go through every day when they put that uniform on. The price that they could pay, that they may not come home. I want them to just take a love and respect from experiencing this for the men and women in uniform.
Salome, thank you so much for talking with me here today. So let's have Damien just flip the camera around, because I do want to show you some more folks who have shown up. Because we're right along the middle of the route, you can see that the road still has not shut down. We're still waiting for the procession to hit us, but you can see how much Cooper Dyson meant to this community by the number of folks who are continuing to show up here. When we talk about the risks that these law enforcement officers face, it is a risk that Deputy Dyson knew very well. We've heard his family say that he had a Bible in his patrol car that he prayed before every shift because he knew the risks that he was inherently taking with this job. And he was clearly somebody who was dedicated to service, not just in the community by signing up with the Pierce County Sheriff's Office, of which we've heard that this was his dream job, but prior to this, he also served in the U.S. Coast Guard serving our country. We'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Simney, a good reminder. Yes, his father speaking right after his death, saying he prayed every shift, had that Bible with him. We are seeing our first images here from Chopper 7. You are seeing part of the procession. This is the beginning of the procession here live from overhead. We know that it left the north gate of Joint Base Lewis McChord, heading north on South Tacoma Way. It'll go east on 26th and then south on D Street. We're looking, I believe, at a long stretch limo, possibly a hearse here. The family is always in these first vehicles, followed by many, many law enforcement agencies from all over, of course, Pierce County, but state troopers across the state, different police agencies, and even from as far away as Canada, as we often see, looking live from Chopper 7.
Crime Stoppers' Jim Fuda continues with us. He will be with us throughout this morning and this afternoon. And Jim, this is not something that just happens overnight. Unfortunately, these are planned for many months in advance because you, among others, know that this is going to happen. We're going to lose officers in the line of duty.
Yes, but remember, if you're planning a party for 5,000 people, you have months to do it. Here, to tailor things to a particular agency, to a particular family, to a particular location, the logistics that go into that in 4 or 5 days is astronomical.
My word, look at the line. Now, we saw the very beginning of it with the motorcycle patrol leading the way, and they will be closing down intersections as they go, but the line continues. These vehicles representing law enforcement agencies, not only all over the state, as Michelle said earlier, all over the country and Canada, and there you see JBLM, and they're in the background, and there the slow procession of these vehicles queuing up, and quiet respect being paid by those along the street with their American flags. Again, we often see people out here, and Jim, we often find that many of those who come out to pay their respects have a background in some sort of service, whether it be the military, whether it be law enforcement. They get it.
Absolutely. They know what it's like to lose somebody or to give a service, and they're out there to show their respect.
And we're looking at the beginning of the procession. This is from our Ranji Sinha's camera vantage point here with photojournalist Bruce Groves. We're looking at the beginning of this with, as Steve mentioned, people holding the American flags there. We saw Seattle police vehicles go by, saw several of those. So this is right at the north gate of JBLM. This procession should take about an hour. We're staying on the air here. If you need to get out of the house, we are streaming it live at KIRO7.com as well if you're on the go. The memorial service begins at 1 this afternoon at the Tacoma Dome. We will carry that in its entirety. And at the Tacoma Dome is our Kevin McCarty. Kevin, what are you seeing there at this point?
And I want to show you some more of the preparations that are taking place here. You can see behind me, that is the Washington State Patrol Honor Guard that's lining up. Ahead of them, just about to march under the twin ladders from the fire department holding the flag, is the Piper Corps march, bagpipes and drums. Very common tradition in law enforcement and the military for bagpipes to play at these funerals and at these memorial services, and they're lining up getting ready for the procession to make its way from JBLM here to the Tacoma Dome for the memorial service. Just over to the left, I'm going to have you, Terry, push over to the left a little bit. You can see people are beginning to line the street here. People who just come holding flags, just watching this, getting ready to be here, getting ready to greet the procession when it makes its way from Joint Base Lewis McChord to here. And as we've seen in the past, that is a lengthy process to get from JBLM here to the Tacoma Dome for this memorial service. It's a very slow process across town, very slow procession, and people are lining up and getting ready for the cars to begin arriving here. And of course, there will be hundreds of them from departments all over the country, and as you mentioned, from Canada. We also saw a group that went inside a short time ago holding flags from different law enforcement agencies all over the state and the country. They went inside to get ready for the memorial service that's going to take place at about 1 o'clock here. Again, you can see the pipe and drum corps with the honor guard now under the flags. They're getting ready, getting things coordinated. As you mentioned, there's a whole lot of coordination that has to go into these things like this, and they do practice. I've talked with people who work in the honor guard with Pierce County and talk to them about the preparations they make, the rehearsals and the practices they do, because they also do a lot of they have a lot of appearances and a lot of responsibilities other than just funerals. So they practice a lot, they get ready for this a lot. Of course, this is something they really don't want to have to do. Nobody in the law enforcement wants to be here, as you've mentioned several times, but they do get ready to be here to show honor to the fallen officer, to the fallen deputy, and to the family of that fallen deputy. So we're continuing to watch the preparations underway here at the Tacoma Dome. We're going to keep monitoring this situation, and for now, we'll throw it back to you.
All right, Kevin, we see the flags at half-mast behind you, half-mast, and also other honor guards moving into position while we, from Chopper 7, can show you the pictures of the procession being led by the motorcycle officers, again, who close the intersections as they make their way across town and over to the Tacoma Dome for today's memorial service, which, again, is something that's planned out in accordance with what the family wants and also with what law enforcement has done over the course of the years. And it's going to take a while, not only to get this procession all the way through town into the Tacoma Dome, but to get everybody out of those vehicles and into the dome and in their places. So as Kevin said, this is going to be quite the process.
And we're here with Jim Fuda. We've done too many of these, Jim, we said before we went on air, unfortunately, but this does mean a lot to the families to see the community come out and thank them for their loved one's service, and it means a lot to them.
Absolutely. And what you're going to see with this motorcade when it arrives, where you saw the practice there before, is that the pipes, the riderless horse, the honor guard, 2 honor guard members will go on each side of the car door, and they will escort Deputy Dyson to the inside the Tacoma Dome, but they will all do that, render honors outside as they bring him in. The family will be set aside someplace where they can get some refreshments. It's been a long day for them already, and then they will come in when they are finally seated after everybody else is inside. Then their service will start.
And almost since the time Deputy Dyson died in that crash, December 21st, officers stand guard and take turn or take shift standing at the casket, correct?
That's correct.
Up until this point of today.
Exactly. From the moment he was released from the funeral home, there has been guards with him the entire time.
As we continue to look at the procession, lights flashing as all these vehicles, and yes, there is protection for the rest of the community out there. These are often officers who are off duty, who are being backed up by those who will take double shifts just so they can participate in this procession and honor their fallen member. Here, again, some of the honor guard from, it appears to be the State Patrol, among others, perhaps a mixed honor guard of service members as well, getting prepared, getting set for the bringing of the remains of Officer Dyson into the Tacoma Dome in just a bit. Again, lots of pomp and circumstance here, but all for a reason. And Jim, we've talked about, we've seen this so many times before, and it is a real sign of the brotherhood and sisterhood that we're dealing with today. That's
true. You'll see there'll be 200 minimum honor guard people from all over the state and the region. And I know that Seattle Police brought 60, and that's honor guard plus motorcycles plus other people to assist. So that's just one agency, and that isn't even the ones that are attending. Those are the ones that are helping.
And Jim, as we look at this from our photojournalist Terry Griffin there, he is right outside the Tacoma Dome where this service takes place today at 1 o'clock. These are flags, I'm presuming they were from all over, from different police departments, right? And they all bring their flags.
Yes.
To that, yeah. We're looking live here, as Steve had mentioned earlier, the flags at half-mast there, at half-staff outside the Tacoma Dome as we get ready for this service today. If you're just joining us, I'm Michelle Millman along with Steve Rabel here on Cairo 7. We are watching live the procession for Deputy Cooper Dyson, just 25 years old. He died on the way to back up fellow deputies at a domestic violence call December 21st, days before Christmas. He leaves behind a 2-year-old boy who his father said was so excited for Christmas, and Cooper Dyson himself was excited for Christmas because he knew his son was starting to understand that, oh, those presents under the tree are for me. So he was very, very excited. His father said Christmas was his favorite holiday. Speaking of his son, Cooper Dyson, and Cooper's wife is pregnant with their daughter, and she is due next month. So this family, as you can even imagine, I cannot, is going through so much right now. And this community is coming out in force to pay their respects today for Deputy Cooper Dyson.
And Jim, Michelle brings up a good point that the family is all together for this, and the officer running to the driving in this situation to the sound of the danger. It doesn't often happen sometimes the way we think. It's not sometimes gunfire. It can be something as awful as a fatal automobile accident that takes the officer's life.
Absolutely. Responding to a call, lights and siren, especially in bad weather and nighttime, low vision, is very dangerous.
A lot of folks might remember just last week when this occurred. Those days, that particular night, we were getting heavy rain. There was heavy water standing on the road, and all indications are that his vehicle hydroplaned and lost control, and he was lost his life in that accident. Our Ranji Sinha continues to stand by along the processional route, watching the vehicles go by with any number of civilians who are also there. Ranji?
To Joint Base Lewis McCord, the vast majority of the vehicles from the procession have already left, but I'm joined by a gentleman who's been out here probably the longest. Can you tell us your name, sir? Thank you for joining us here in Cairo 7.
Glad to be here. My name is Bob Stasinski, and I live in Graham, Washington.
Bob, I saw you out here. You were the first person, I think, out here. What drew you out here today?
Well, I'm a former Marine, and I served in the Marine Corps on U.S. I should say Air Force One, and I love my country, I love my county, and I just wanted to pay respects for an officer that went down too early, too soon.
I mean, you came out here. Who did you come out here today with?
My lovely wife, Patricia.
What do you want to say to the family of Cooper Dyson after this loss?
You know, it's tough to put words towards a death and stuff like that, because I've seen a lot of death in my life, and all I want is to say to her, God be with her, and I hope that she's financially set for life, and that her kids always remember Dad the way, you know, Dad was and everything, and just wish her the best, and you know, and God be with her.
And when I was speaking to you just before, you also had another wish. You said you wish this could stop.
Yeah, the violence nowadays, you know, it's got to stop. Domestic violence, and people have to communicate with people and get along with people instead of, you know, Lilistine argument, domestic violence, you know, drugs and such like that. It's got to stop. One of these days, somebody's going to make a decision and stop this. It's wrong.
Bob, thank you very much for being out here. Thank you for your service as well. We appreciate it. So you can see a number of people have been out here quite some time. In fact, now that the procession is gone, the roadway is opened back up. Most of the people who are on the sidewalk have dissipated, but we're expecting to see a lot more people along the procession route. And of course, we have other crews along the route, so you'll see what they see coming up. But for right now, most of the people here have left and the procession has left. So we'll be keeping track But for now, live here in Lakewood, let's throw it back to you in the studio.
All right, Runji, thank you for that. We do want to go live from Chopper 7 overhead of this procession as we watch live here on Cairo 7. I want to mention the gentleman Runji just interviewed, Bob, talked about he hoped that Cooper Dyson's family is financially set. And we do want to mention that we know the Sheriff's Department has established a legacy fund for the family. We have information of that on our website, Cairo7.com. Also, you can go to any TAPCO credit union and donate. So I just wanted to mention that is weighing on Bob's mind, who you heard Runji talk to there live for us, that this young woman pregnant with their second child with a toddler as well, and they're due with their baby girl next month. And Deputy Dyson himself was just 25 years old. So financially, if you're able to help out, that's the way to do it. So our information is at Cairo7.com.
The procession continues on. We showed you the shot from Chopper 7 a moment ago when you could see the hearse bearing the body of the officer there at the lead of the procession, followed by the longer stretch limousines carrying members of the family and officers and dignitaries as well. Our Simney Kim is standing by along the way, and the procession has now reached her. Simney?
Steve, as you mentioned, the procession is making its way behind me right now along South Tacoma Way and South 56th Street. And these are the folks who have come out here to pay their respects to Cooper Dyson. You can see as we flip the camera to show you that a lot of the folks here, not a dry eye in the place. A lot of people have their hands over their hearts, some in salute, as the gravity of the situation really drives home for them. As we walk along, I do want to show you some of the folks who have made it a point to be here on this Monday. Some of these folks are residents of Pierce County who brought their children to understand the sacrifices that law enforcement makes for us on a daily basis. Others have traveled from a bit farther away. We talked to a woman here who came from Olympia, but she just wanted to make sure that the family knew that they were continuing to be supported during this very, very difficult time. I do want to take a moment to speak to a young man by the name of Cameron Greenfield. He is a fire explorer for King County. And Cameron, I appreciate you standing here and talking to us right now. Yeah, I do want to talk about the moment, because I looked over as the procession began and we saw the hearse pass through. I looked over at you in salute. Can you describe what was going through your mind as you watched that moment?
Anytime we lose a officer or a firefighter or anybody in the first responder community, it hits the whole community hard. It's definitely felt in all the firehouses. It's definitely felt in all the police offices. It's felt all over the place. And not from only the county they served in, but from every county they've been in, every county throughout the state and out of state. As you've seen through the procession today, they have multiple different departments, even from multiple different states. When we lose someone, we come together as a family, and essentially every badge is one family. Everyone goes home, and when we lose someone, we do all that we can do to make sure they have the proper coming home.
Cameron, I know that you are just starting out in your career right now. What does it mean to you to know that as you begin your life of service to the community, that you have the support of everybody here behind you?
Honestly, it feels great. It's an amazing feeling to do what I do. It's amazing to have such amazing community support, even in such tragic event.
Cameron, thank you. I appreciate you being out here. Cameron is not the only one. You can see that this has touched a lot of people here in our community, a lot of families with bringing their young children. They're home on winter break right now. Probably most likely wanting to do anything but being here right now, but yet here they are because they do want the family to know that they will continue to be supported. A lot of people, you saw a sign earlier saying praying for the family, hearts, their hands, that is, over their hearts and carrying flags, just to continue to let people know that as the dust settles, once this day passes, they will continue to have the Dyson family in their hearts and their minds. Well, for now, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Simney Kim, along that procession route, just such long faces there, people paying their respects. And as I listened to her interview, we're here with Jim Fuda with Crime Stoppers of Puget Sound. As we listened to that interview there, Jim, we're looking live here from Chopper 7 at the hearse and the salute here, part of the ceremony of this day, correct?
Yes. Looks like the hearse has pretty much arrived to the Tacoma Dome.
And we're watching, do they go and salute the hearse and then all the family limousines too?
These honor guard looks like the ones that will be escorting the deputy along with his family as they. You see around the corner where the bagpipes are formed, the horse, that's where they'll make a turn and go into the parking lot.
So they have basically reached now their destination, but they're not going in quite yet. They're waiting for the rest of the procession to catch up?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
And you know, Jim, as Simney was interviewing the firefighter there along the procession route, it struck me that Deputy Cooper Dyson's own father, who spoke in just a few days after his death, is a lieutenant with East Pierce Fire and Rescue, and it does kind of run in the blood of a family, you know, to serve in that way and be a first responder. Have you found that in your 33 years in law enforcement, that a lot of this runs in the family?
My agency that I retired from, the King County Sheriff's Office, has a father who just finished his last shift with his 2 sons that are now police officers.
And there's the firefighter Simney just talked to.
Again, part of the tradition, the tape across the badge representing a fallen officer, and the salute.
As we look live here from this camera with photojournalist Damian Glitch here along the procession route, the American flags there and somber faces and silence. You don't see anyone speaking there, and here we are seeing the pipes and drums that will be a part of the ceremony this afternoon. This is a 100-year-old tradition, and usually these pipes and drums used in police and firefighting ceremonies. And the riderless horse we spoke about earlier. Jim talked a bit to us about, and people maybe just tuning in and don't know what this is all about, what that riderless horse is symbolizing for us today.
Simulate that we've lost one of our own, and that horse is riding off by himself.
Kevin McCarty is standing by as this procession now approaches him, and maybe nothing more solemn, Kevin, than the sound of pipes and drums coming your way.
And we want to take you right down to that right away, Steve. As you can see them, that pipe and drum corps making its way up the street now toward the Tacoma Dome. The street lined with officers, some holding the flags of their departments, others standing at attention out in front of the dome, waiting for the arrival of Cooper Dyson's body. Let's listen for a moment.
And you're watching those solemn moments there. We heard the pipes and drums. This is from the Tacoma Dome. Our photojournalist Terry Griffin here showing us this scene with many officers there holding flags, including the Canadian flag, as you see here. And we watched the family arrive here following the hearse. Just such a somber morning. We're here with Jim Fuda with Puget Sound Crime Stoppers. Jim, this is just a sight to behold.
Yeah, where the tradition kicks in and the same honors are rendered. It's got to be overwhelming for the family right now.
They have been escorted from their cars. They are awaiting Deputy Dyson's body to be taken from the back of that hearse. You can see the flag-covered coffin through the back window, and it will be placed on a carrier that we saw a few moments ago. But before they do that, they want all the family and those who are closest to Officer Dyson to be in position. The honor guard is there. You heard the pipe and drum corps escort Officer Dyson up the hill to the Tacoma Dome. All those officers in the procession are now parking their vehicles. They are making their way into the dome. And in a moment, the officer will be taken from the hearse and brought inside for the celebration of his life and the memorial service.
And I believe we're seeing the door open there. You saw live from Chopper 7 the family gathering just beyond the hearse. If we could go maybe live from Chopper 7 again, you can see that family gathered back there behind there at the bottom of our screen. And there is the casket of 25-year-old Deputy Cooper Dyson now being removed from the hearse as the family looks on. Deputy Dyson, just 25 years old, died responding to a domestic violence call December 21st, just days before Christmas. He was in a car crash in his patrol car. His father, who believe is one of the pallbearers here, is a lieutenant with East Pierce Fire and Rescue as the family follows the casket inside the Tacoma Dome for a 1 o'clock service. His father, speaking only days after his son died, thanking the community, said his son loved his job but knew the dangers and carried a Bible with him in his patrol car, and before every shift he would open that Bible and pray.
Officers, deputies representing departments all over the state standing at attention, saluting their fallen comrade as the family makes its way behind the casket. As Jim was mentioning a few moments ago, and if you're just joining us here as we approach the noon hour here on Cairo 7, Jim Fuda from Crime Stoppers of Puget Sound was mentioning, all of this is very well planned and yet still has to be done in a very short period of time, as one never knows when one will lose an officer in the line of duty.
And Deputy Dyson first served our country with the Coast Guard, but his father said his dream was to be a Pierce County deputy, and sure enough, that is what he did. He was with the Sheriff's Department just about a year before he lost his life December 21st, but loved his job. And his father also said in the days after his son's death that the love the community has shown them and this family in the days following Cooper Dyson's death is why Cooper wanted to be a deputy, the love of the Pierce County community that he wanted to serve.
Briefly there, you got your first look inside the Tacoma Dome as they prepare for the visitors, members of law enforcement, to fill a good deal of those seats for today's memorial service. There will be songs, national anthems, invocations, prayers, remarks by members of the law enforcement community, including Sheriff Paul Pastor from the Pierce County Sheriff's Department, a final benediction and a final song, and then the Officer Dyson, will be taken and laid to rest.
And we will carry that service for you. It is supposed to start at 1 this afternoon. We'll carry it for you live right here on KIRO 7 and at KIRO7.com as we have an outside vantage point here where the procession ended at the Tacoma Dome as we look at this scene as well there in Tacoma in Pierce County. The flags there on the right of your screen at half staff. And then, of course, as we see in these processions, two ladder trucks out there with the ladders extended and an American flag falling, and from that right there in the center of your screen.
Jim, as you mentioned as well, it's an hour before this service is about to start, the memorial service. This has been a very difficult morning. It's been a very difficult week for this family. They will be taken aside for a while, right?
Yeah,
sort of to
get some refreshments,
yes.
use the restroom, whatever they have to do, and unite together, and they will be coming seated last. These ceremonies are actually 3 parts. Initial, there'll be a ceremonial part. The middle part is the actual service itself, and the end will be another ceremonial part where there'll be the bagpipes, Amazing Grace. There'll be the 21-gun salute. If that may be done here, unless he's being buried somewhere, and that'll be done at the cemetery. But what happens is some families, depending on the type of death, don't want a 21-gun salute, so they do the 21 bells that signifies the same thing. If it's been a homicide where shots have been fired that they don't want that, right, then it's done the other way.
Right. And we see the casket here arriving, the empty seats on the floor of the Tacoma Dome, they will soon be filled. The pallbearers representing members of law enforcement accompanying the body of Deputy Dyson, and as Jim has mentioned to us, his body will be accompanied by law enforcement members almost from the time he passed until the time he is laid to rest.
And that is a casket watch. They watch the officer's body 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As Jim had mentioned to us, that watch begins as soon as possible after the officer is killed and continues until the officer is buried. As we look live here inside the Tacoma Dome, and the pallbearers bringing in the body of Deputy Cooper Dyson, just 25 years old, died in the line of duty responding to a domestic violence call. His patrol vehicle crashed, and he died at the scene that day last weekend.
Pallbearers, fall out.
And Jim, you know, as we watch this, I saw up on the podium there where people will be speaking during this 1 o'clock ceremony, the number 579, his badge number.
Yep.
And they often play at these ceremonies the last call.
Last radio call. Yeah. Ending with gone but not forgotten.
And again, that ceremony is set to begin at 1 this afternoon. In just over an hour here, we're looking live inside the Tacoma Dome. If you're just joining us, I'm Michelle Millman, along with Steve Rabel and Jim Fuda with Puget Sound Crime Stoppers. Unfortunately, Jim and Steve, we've seen too many of these, as we are seeing again today. Just a 25-year-old deputy who served our country with the Coast Guard, but then lived his dream of being a Pierce County Sheriff's deputy.
And so as we watch the preparations for the memorial service and the officers from all around the country and Canada as well begin to file into the Tacoma Dome, as well as guests, and this memorial service is also open to the public, we will tell you that we will stay on the air here at Cairo 7. We will begin our noon news here in just a few seconds. And of course, our noon newscast will encompass much of this memorial service, which will then begin in earnest at 1 o'clock. So stand by with us here at Cairo 7. We'll be with you throughout the entire memorial service for Deputy Cooper Dyson. And right now, at noon, a live look at a growing memorial for a fallen South Sound Sheriff's deputy. Today, Pierce County is coming together to remember one of their own, a hero who lost his life in the line of duty. And thank you for joining us on this most somber day. I'm Steve Rabel.
And I'm Michelle Millman. Right now, hundreds are pouring into the Tacoma Dome to pay their respects to Pierce County Deputy Cooper Dyson. Dyson died December 21st, just days before Christmas. He was called in as backup for a domestic violence incident when he crashed his patrol vehicle. Today, his family and the South Sound community is honoring his life.
We have team coverage of the procession that we have been showing you live for the last hour and the memorial that is set to start at 1 p.m. We begin with Cairo 7 Southtown reporter Kevin McCarty, who is live outside the Tacoma Dome. Kevin?
And Steve, we all just saw the scene a few moments ago of the body of Cooper Dyson arriving here at the Tacoma Dome for the memorial service. A very, very somber scene, as you saw, with the pipe and drum corps marching by, and then the riderless horse, the honor guard. We saw people from departments all over the state, all over the West, and from out of the country. We saw police from Eugene, from Spokane, from Bellevue. There was a woman here from the United States Coast Guard. There was a representative from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Police and fire departments up and down the Puget Sound area, Tukwila, Kent, Bellevue, Fife, all here to pay tribute to Cooper Dyson, who died in the line of duty during that crash, responding to a domestic violence call on the 21st of the month. And that's something we've been discussing. I know you've been discussing back there about the dangers what these officers face, what the deputies face. That's a discussion I had last week with Detective Ed Troyer from the Pierce County Sheriff's Department. Driving and being in traffic, being in those vehicles is one of the most dangerous things police officers and deputies do. They sometimes have to move at high speeds. There are other cars out there. There are risks, including weather. And we saw that play out with Cooper Dyson's death on the 21st as he responded to that very, very violent call where a man was accused of attacking his own 6-year-old sister and then nearly killed a Pierce County Sheriff's canine police dog. So as you saw earlier, the body and the family moved inside, as well as the honor guard. We're still seeing a lot of arrivals from fire departments from around the area that have lined up around in the parking lot across the street. You can see people marching in to the Tacoma Dome for this memorial service. About an hour out now. There's a lot of in that procession that still has to arrive. A lot of people still coming here. This is, of course, as you mentioned, open to the public. So anyone who wants to come here, who wants to go inside the Tacoma Dome and see this memorial service for themselves, they are welcome here. I would advise, if you're going to do that, you're going to want to get here pretty soon. Parking is very limited around here right now because of all the police vehicles that are going to be taking up the available parking when that procession makes its way all of those cars make their way from Joint Base Lewis McChord. So we're going to stay here on the scene, continue to monitor things, and right now we'll toss it back to you in the studio. All
right, Kevin, we do want to mention Zepp, that police dog, is okay after being choked nearly to death by that suspect and is home resting during the holidays. All right, thank you, Kevin McCarty there at the Tacoma Dome. Let's take a look at some new video from Chopper 7 showing the start of the procession for late Deputy Cooper Dyson. This procession started just about 11 o'clock, a little after, just outside Joint Base Lewis McChord. You can see the line of patrol vehicles from all over the region, the state, even from Canada, making their way toward the Tacoma Dome.
That procession went for blocks and blocks and blocks. KROS 7's Ranji Sinha was at the start of the procession. And Ranji, the procession running a similar route to one that was done just a few years ago.
Yeah, it was nearly 2 years ago that Deputy Daniel McCartney was killed in the line of duty. His procession started in this area near the north gate at JBLM. You can see traffic still backed up here because the procession made its way down South Tacoma Way. When we were here earlier, though, the north gate was where all of the vehicles streamed out. The procession for Deputy Cooper Dyson starting here, taking a slightly different route than it did for Deputy McCartney. And we were here for the start of the procession, which kicked off around 11:10. Cooper Dyson was 25 years old, was rushing to back up his fellow deputies at what turned out to be a very dangerous domestic violence call on December 21st. He died in a car crash in Parkland. Dyson's family says the young deputy had already dedicated himself to service by serving in the Coast Guard and then becoming a deputy. Out here this morning, we saw police vehicles arriving at JBLM as early as 8 a.m. and even met some people planning to stand on this procession route, and they too arrived very early.
We're one family. My dad was law enforcement, I'm law enforcement, my son wants to be in law enforcement, and we all support each other.
When they line the procession route, the public gets out, the kids with the flags, the people showing support, that actually means a lot to us as cops. It's who we work for in the first place.
Now, Cooper Dyson's family says that he loved being a deputy and that he proudly served this community. They said joining the Pierce County Sheriff's Department was a dream come true for him. Now, we have numerous crews along the procession route, which goes down South Tacoma Way towards the Tacoma Dome. For a little different perspective, we'll throw it over to my colleague, Simney Kim, who's along the route as well. We're live in Lakewood. Let's throw it up a little bit.
Runji, the procession has passed by, so as you can see behind me, traffic is back to normal here along South Tacoma Way and South 56th Street. But for a short time, these roads were shut down. People lined South Tacoma to pay their respects and to honor the life and legacy of Deputy Cooper Dyson. Folks were just standing here. They had their hands over their hearts. They had signs. Some were holding American flags. Some were also in salute to say thank you to a man who dedicated his life to the community and ultimately gave the ultimate sacrifice. You're looking at video that was taken just moments ago, showing the folks, as I mentioned, who were lining the route as they waited for the procession to come through. You could see the emotion in their eyes as they stood here, the gravity sinking in of the life that was lost, all in service to his community. As you can see in this video, a lot of people also brought their young children because they say they want their kids to know the risks that law enforcement faces for them on a daily basis. A lot of the folks here were here from the Pierce County area, but I did also speak to a woman from Olympia, a woman by the name of Salome Hansen, who made it a point to drive up here with her 2 daughters.
You don't know if it's your last time, talking to your family, seeing your family. And it's really, really important for the family in uniform and his family to know that there are people out here who will never forget the sacrifice that he made and what he did every day when he put that uniform on.
And I think the gravity of everything, you could see as there was no dry eye here when the hearse as part of the procession came through and folks realized the true sacrifice, what that means when folks like Cooper Dyson do put their uniforms on. A very, very powerful and poignant moment here. As traffic has gone back to normal, as the dust settles, I think that is what a lot of people want to convey to the Dyson family, is that though life gets back to normal, they want folks to know, they want the family to know that they will never forget them and the sacrifice that Cooper Dyson made for this community. We're live here in Tacoma. Simney Kim, Cairo 7 News.
So important for the family to hear that. Simney, thank you for that. Let's go back live inside the Tacoma Dome. The public memorial for Deputy Cooper Dyson is set to start in just under an hour at 1 o'clock. Cairo 7 will carry all of that live for you right here on Cairo 7 and Cairo7.com. And joining us here on the set this afternoon, Jim Fuda with Crime Stoppers of Puget Sound. And, you know, during the procession, we watched a lot of, you know, ceremonial things with the riderless horse and the boots that are empty and on backwards, signifying these soldiers, these officers who will never come home. A lot of that is just steeped in so much tradition we've seen for decades.
It just shows the honor that's given to someone who's fallen in the line of duty. It's very important. It's important to the family, and it's important for all of us in the police community as we heal, that know that that's available to any one of us should anything like that happen, and to know that our family will be taken care of.
And Simney talked about how important this is, this love and this support from the community for the family left behind. Their daughter next month, a 2-year-old boy who will not, both these children not grow up with their father. It does mean a lot to the family to see this community come out as well, right?
Absolutely. And she will not be forgotten in any sense of the word by the police departments, by the Behind the Badge Foundation. She will be invited into that community. There are seminars for kids. There are seminars for her. They can go back to D.C. every year for the dedication of the police memorial. So there's a lot there.
Jim, I'm struck listening to those that our reporters have talked to out in the field, and of course you know this as a law enforcement member, that we hear so many times, my son is a law enforcement, my father was in law enforcement, I'm in law enforcement, and yet we are confronted with days like this when you might be burying a family member. It just goes to the heart of who these people are, that they know what that danger is, they see it in their families and their friends, and they choose to do that anyway.
It's the bond, it's the service. You will not find a career where you might not like me on this to go out and have a drink with, but I'll die for you at work. And that is the commitment that every one of these officers makes when they raise their hand.
And they know putting on that uniform, that badge, there is no routine call.
That's
There
right.
is no routine traffic stop. We've seen it far too often. What can happen?
Yeah, you can train and train and train, and then instincts have to kick in.
All right. Thank you, Jim, for being here. You can follow all of Deputy Dyson's memorial online. We're carrying the memorial on our website, Cairo7.com, as well. You can also follow if you have the Cairo 7 News app. That is free in your app store.
Again, we will continue to cover this, but there is other news to